It's a good topic.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So can you allow me to share it so I can see if it's running well?
Yeah, sure. You can change. No, you can share. It's okay.
You see it?
Yes. We can see that. Yeah.
Let me share the other one on the proper. Yeah, this one. Do you see it?
Yeah, it's perfect. So we are already on live. So let's start, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Dear respected Mr. Mughees Shaukat, who is our guest speaker today, and respected participants, lecturers, students, and guests. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to today's session on Islamic finance arbitration and harmonization, the Shariah governance conundrum, which will be conducted by Mr. Mughees Shaukat today. So as you know, we نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي بجامعة الكويت, the Islamic Economics Association of Kuwait University, promotes Sharia-compliant finance frameworks and models by conducting lectures, talks, workshops, and trainings in English language as well, also in Arabic language, which covers a wide range of areas in Islamic banking, Islamic microfinance, Islamic insurance, Islamic capital market, Islamic equity market, the features and Sharia principles of Islamic finance, the nature of contracts and products, services provided by Islamic banking. And we, Nadir Iqtisad al-Islami also focuses on arranging series of Islamic lectures and talks on some specific topics, including sukuk, retail and corporate banking products, and also contemporary issues. So today we are very much honored to have our Mr. Mughees Shaukat, who will conduct the special session on Islamic finance arbitration and harmonization. So Mr. Mughees Shaukat is a chairman, advisory board of GI Canada, and a strategic policy advisor, fintech, and digital banking specialist. A pioneer head of Islamic finance, Oman, and vice chairman of AOFI Education Board, Bahrain. So without any delay, let me invite Mr. Mughees to conduct the lecture. Please welcome, Mr.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining, which time zones that you're carrying. And thank you very much, Brother Muhammad, for having me yet again to join this prestigious platform and share my thought process on key issues that surround Islamic finance, from past to current versions, and of course related to the future dynamics as well. Now, basically, as you would know, I mean, whenever I talk, whichever platform, mostly I try and engage the participants by making my lectures, as you've mentioned, that as an open discussion forum, Muhammad. And you know, I mean, it's basically here I am putting forward my thought process with regarding this topic, and then, you know, trying to provoke a discussion, a healthy understanding debate, perhaps filling in the gaps of knowledge and providing new knowledge, or even learning from it too, so that a collective creation of knowledge wealth is created, or awareness is created with regards to key areas like the one that we have on our hands for today's session. So it's basically a discussion. It's a group discussion where participants have joined us to have me initiate this, put my chunk of main meat, and then allow others to participate and ask questions regarding this topic. And believe you me, this is one of those areas or one of those topics that has been least properly understood, properly paid attention to, properly discussed, and properly made aware about. And it's such a crucial topic, because for anything that you do, and you're talking about right now financial systems and financial sector and transactions, the legal cover is one of the main components of the whole ecosystem that surrounds that financial transaction or financial system. And when it comes to Islamic finance, while we can, safely argue that it is still a work in progress ecosystem that would totally align and then support Islamic finance the way it should show it true colors, and those components of that ecosystem are still, under development. Similar is the case about the component that deals with legal and arbitration side of Islamic finance or Islamic economical transactions. So what is worryingly, surprising, is that while some of the other key components are gaining momentum in terms of people getting aware about them, people talking a lot more about them, or perhaps paying attention to that, the arbitration or the legal affairs or harmonization or standards, and you hear it, but this has not been given the right share of its attention, even though it is among the top 3 or 4 most important components of the whole Islamic financial ecosystem surrounding Islamic financial affairs and transactions. And you don't cover it properly, it not only adds to, inefficiencies in the system, but adds to costs too. It's a very costly process. It becomes a much more costly process when you go into an Islamic finance arbitration where the arbitration component is not well attuned to Islamic financial understanding. So it's a very, very, very important topic. As I mentioned, it's among the top 3 to 4 components of the whole Islamic financial ecosystem. You talk about about Islamic banking. You talk about a lot about Islamic financial regulation. You talk about a lot about Islamic financial products and whatnot as the other components of ecosystem. But and those can't be number 10, number 9, number 11 in the list. But little, if at all, is mustered upon, even to create a healthy discussion on topic that relates to arbitration or harmonization. This is what I believe, and I think this is what the common faith is and common belief is. And this can be very, very well validated when you see that the vacuum in the legal understanding of Islamic financial transactions and the outcome out of that vacuum created in that legal transaction system, plus the costliness of that, tells you in advance that this idea or this area or this aspect or this component of the ecosystem is very much under address. So this is where I am, trying to provoke some discussion, trying to pay attention to this area, trying to shed some preliminary light vis-a-vis my thought process and sharing what is going on. And I think what is going on and what has to go on if we want to really fix this area by our own selves. So basically, this is what the system is. And first of all, I would, again, as I always do these days, when I start any of my presentation, is that, we empathize and sympathize, given the COVID scenario, the COVID catastrophe and the human cost. We empathize and sympathize to all of those who have been affected, who have lost their lives, who have lost their loved ones. Our full empathies and sympathies to them, our prayers for them, our prayers also that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us get rid of this menace sooner than later, keep us safe in these testing times, particularly health-wise. Of course, it has an economic impact as well. And kudos and profound appreciation to all of those, be it from the government sector, from the private sector, even at individual capacities, all those medical health workers who are at the front line in trying to rescue humankind from this pandemic crisis. So best wishes, sympathies, empathies, and prayers for all of those who are being affected, and best of appreciations and prayers to all of those who are trying to rescue us from it. What it has done is, I mean, health, yes, is one major component as an outcome of the COVID catastrophe. The simultaneous component has, which to be honest is much more a medium to long-term consequence, is the economic collapse, or the economic sudden stop, as I call it, that the system or the pandemic has created. And this is the overall grave economic situation. And believe you me, we are still in the middle of it. Some countries are just coming out of it in a preliminary way, very cautiously, while some are facing the third or second wave. Here in Oman, we are yet again in a curfew. Right now it's an evening curfew, but there are, thoughts that a total lockdown is not out of question too. So these cases are rising, other countries are facing. So we are still in the middle of it. And this is what the economic situation looks like. First thing first is we have to not only stop it, perhaps by getting vaccinations, and then try and come back to normal, onto a level that was perhaps a pre-COVID level, try to manage the situation, and then move forward. It's a 3 or 4 layer process that you have to, as a global economy, you have to come out of a COVID scenario and say that, no, I can restart post-COVID. So it's a 3 or 4 layer of process that you have to go through to term yourself that, yes, the world is now post-COVID world. And of course, the impacts would be felt. Not only the post-COVID situation has transformed the macroeconomic trends, what it does is, given the economic contingencies that have increased so much so, particularly after COVID, the chances of financial disputes has risen to a scenario where unknown and unforeseen contingencies are also going to play a huge role. For example, I remember, and I still safe to say that when you go for any insurance contract, the takaful or conventional insurance, and if you go through this contract, crises like COVID crisis were never a part of that legal nitty-gritty that you call as a takaful or an insurance contract. But now it's going to be a part. You see what I mean? This was unforeseen a year or so ago, but now it's going to be a major part in all of these insurance transaction or insurance code. I'm just giving you one example. Similar applies to banking. Similar applies to non-banking. Anything that has commercial sense in nature. Now you will have another factor that you have to take care of when it comes to, legally managing it, or crafting a legal framework, or crafting a contract, and trying to avoid muamalat or financial disputes. Legal jargon or legal mindset has to now face up with this new kind of clauses. So to put a new kind of clause for a new kind of system needs a new kind of mentality. And not only that, the world, the macroeconomic world, of course, pandemic driven now, is also these days going to be much more oriented by technological disruptions in the financial world. You call it fintech, financial technology dynamics. You also have something that the world, even pre-COVID, was already being developed to transform itself as on the lines of UN SDGs. And now you are going to face risks that are, or contingencies that are climate change driven, plus cybersecurity risks. So what I'm trying to tell you is that these changes in the overall makeup of economic and financial risks, and hence the transactions, and hence the risks that are attached to those transactions, and the overall outcomes and the affairs of that are driven by those financial or commercial transaction or muamalat, you are going to face with a new, completely unforeseen variety of risks, hence the contingencies out of those risks. Those risks can relate to cybersecurity, can relate to similar events like pandemic, can relate to UN SDGs risk, can relate to technology risk, can relate to climate change risk, and all of them the world has never seen before. How you're going to cater it, how you're going to secure yourself, how you're going to secure yourself vis-a-vis the clauses and the contract makeup that you're going to do. So this is such a new territory in so many multiple oriented ways that the world has entered, that unless you do not have a legal backup, which you're going to need, because this will create new disputes. The newer the contingencies are, the newer the ways that you should know how to manage or cater those contingencies, and the newer the chances that you will have unforeseen financial disputes. Now, if you don't have a legal ecosystem, which is a huge component of the overall financial ecosystem, be it Islamic finance, that is proactively attuning itself, raising itself, and trying to preemptively model itself to cover and cater all of those contingencies to avoid or manage a new kind of financial disputes in a new kind of world that is pandemic, fintech, UN SDGs, climate and cybersecurity prone or driven. You need to really, this is going to be among those, arbitration is going to be should be among the top 3, if not top 2 components that the world should straight away start focusing right now, let alone what is happening, before all of these dynamics that has taken place in the world. When it comes to Islamic finance, let alone what this is going to offer to Islamic finance, the 101 version of Islamic finance, hence the arbitration in Islamic finance, was already a work in progress. And now you have to operate an Islamic financial system in a world, or a macroeconomic world or economic world, that is facing these multifaceted dynamics towards it. So if I were talking about Islamic finance arbitration and I was saying, well, I mean, there's still a long way to go for it to really develop and be labeled as this is a legal or arbitration system that best suits Islamic financial transactions. I was still struggling to grasp the idea and saying, well, I mean, there's a lot of work to do for that 101 legal system to match the Islamic financial transaction affairs. Now I have to operate an Islamic financial system in a new kind of world, facing new kind of contingencies never seen before. And I have to simultaneously upgrade proactively and preemptively my legal and arbitration system that not only completes itself for the 101 Islamic finance, which it was already struggling with, but now have to cater for these advanced unforeseen contingencies. Man, oh man, this is going to be you have to be really, really ashraf, which humans has an inbuilt capacity. We are the ashraf al-makhluqat. You have to really live up to your ashrafness to create a proactive, a massively important legal system that preemptively avoids or manages new kind of financial disputes that are going to rise. And when I say fintech, look at this. Fintech itself is an ecosystem. So you look at this diagram, and each item in this diagram, whichever label or category it is coming under, has its own legal contingencies, has its own financial contingencies, which require its legal contingencies and legal management. So you can see fintech itself is a huge ecosystem within an ecosystem, and you need to have a legal backup that is accustomed to a fintech dynamics, and hence try and create clauses that cater to those fintech-driven contingencies and avoid fintech-driven disputes. You don't have that system. The legal system is, we always talk about, is the regulation system ready about fintech or not? Is the banking system ready about fintech or not? Is the staff or culture ready about, the government is ready about technology or not? But little, if at all, I've heard people talking about, well, what do you think is the legal system ready about, which is among the most important components in the overall ecosystem? We don't talk about that. Climate change, we talk about climate change in so many other ways, climate management strategies, environment preservation strategies. Some of the countries like Pakistan are really leading the show when it comes to environment preservation or climate change management. A lot of fundings and a lot of hoo-ha is going on. The current G7, gathering was another, a major step towards, having a overall consensus on protecting Mother Nature from climate change risk and hence the human society. But little, if at all, is being said. Well, if they are going to happen, be it in whatever scope and scale, and we'll be lucky and we have to be really, really ashraf to manage climate change risks, but we still need to know what is the legal backup that is there to help us or help the societies or the commercial transactions or commercialness of the society, the business and financial community, be it Islamic or non-Islamic, to manage those contingencies in a legal way. Nothing is being discussed about. And then, of course, pandemic and stuff like that. So I have no idea why people, even in the legal fraternity, folks that I know, have not looked into this, that this is such an opportunity for them to secure the world from an arbitration and a legal point of view within that ecosystem, to be ready to make the legal framework, and if it's an Islamic financial legal transaction, to create the Islamic financial arbitration and legal framework that automatically is adjusting to these new contingencies driven to a fintech, COVID, pandemic, climate change, cybersecurity, and you name it, driven contingencies that allows to better manage potential financial disputes that are going to come on and so forth. So this is why I believe this is such an important area. And this is why I believe that Islamic financial arbitration is the way forward, because if you get the legal and arbitration dynamics and semantics and intricacies right or even half right, then the dream of folks who are proponents of something that we call as Sharia standardization or Sharia harmonization, they would breathe easy, because then achieving Sharia standardization or Sharia harmonization perhaps would be a little less cumbersome when you have an arbitration and legal system that is in consonance with the Islamic financial transactions. And as I repeat again, that even the 101 arbitration and legal system in the Islamic financial affairs is still so far-fetched and such a long way to go to align itself to the actual Islamic financial fitra. You're now talking about absolutely new contingencies with these new 4 or 5 dynamics, unavoidable. So, man, oh man, I mean, all the best to live up to your ashrafness. This is just one way just to tell what Kuwait is facing through climate change. I mean, I'm sure people can see the slides and look at this rise in sea levels, water availability is going to biodiversity, agriculture. I mean, these are very well connected. Agriculture, if it gets affected by climate change, the whole agriculture system that is also linked with the financial system will start to have new kind of financial disputes that the banks or even the agricultural societies have to have a legal cover for. Governments need a legal cover for, folks. You're talking about that. So it's a massive vacuum that is coming up. And people or students, and I believe Brother Muhammad, when we were discussing this session, he said that, I should speak about something that tells people how to, select a good career in Islamic finance. I didn't go for that topic because I wanted to, discuss this topic, and I can do another session on that topic. But in relation to that, this is your career, for example, folks. Become a lawyer or a barrister or a legal expert or a judge that is so well versed not only in 101 Islamic financial transaction. Believe me, there is a breadth of such experts, massive breadth, top 2 breadth of human capital that Islamic finance may be facing. One of them is the legal mindset or legal experts that are in absolute consonance with their fitra as well as their mental makeup about how Islamic financial transactions happen. This is it. This is your career. I mean, make a career and become a lawyer in climate change, legal affairs vis-a-vis financial system, or pandemic-driven legal affairs vis-a-vis financial system, or technology. All of these 4 or 5 items that I've mentioned, you become a legal expert in that. This is your career. You not only earn a lot of fellows, definitely, but man, oh man, you're going to be in high demand, guys. Wow, this applies to me as well. Allah gives me time, and maybe after I'm 40, who knows that this discipline, at least, I can go for another degree and do a law degree in climate change, for example. Wow, that's worth a note, even for myself as well. Okay, so look at this UN SDGs, all of this. Now, one thing that has always bothered me, these new dynamics just came to the world scenario, but even the 101, even when you talk about the 101 and what I always go to the root, I always see what is the cause. You see, people forget, because that's a problem when a system is driven by knowers of the system rather than believers or visionaries of the system. This is what these knowers do. They not only confuse themselves, but they confuse others too and blur the whole understanding about a certain discipline. And same is happening in Islamic finance. Now, when I look at Islamic finance and the issues that surround Islamic finance, be it any discipline, when I am training myself to look at the cause, what is the cause? What is the root of that cause? And I train myself to be basir enough, to be insightful enough, and I train myself to be insightful enough so that I can distinguish if somebody tells me something, that are you talking about an effect or are you talking about a cause? Because sometimes people talk about effects because they are confused at the back of their mind. They start talking about the effects as if they are challenges or they are the causes. You see what I mean? I train myself to avoid this confusion where I talk about effects and I start thinking as if effects are causes. No. You have to be basir enough to bifurcate what is the effect and what is the cause, and then focus on the cause, try and address the cause. Because if you address the cause, effects will be addressed by themselves. To do so, you have to be basir enough, you have to be insightful enough, clever enough, train your mind to see, am I talking about an effect or am I talking about a cause? Because it is an effect. If it's an effect, I should go to the cause. So this confusion of cause and effects being translated as causes, this is where this knower-driven mentality of Islamic finance, be it in the academia or the predominant I'm talking about, very conservative, be it in the academia or the industry, has cleared this disillusion or this cognitive dissonance or cognitive deficiency in the cognitive ability of the masses to differentiate what is black and what is white. And this is exactly has been happening in this area as well of legal and arbitration. So look at this. For example, if somebody faces a legal dispute out of an Islamic financial transaction, and the world has seen many cases. I mean, this is not new. So what happens is, if you go through the nitty-gritty of the contract of that transaction between those parties, predominantly you would see that when it comes to the legal clauses of those transactions, predominantly you would see that both parties have chosen a neutral venue to settle their potential legal disputes. Predominantly, this is point number one. I don't mind choosing a neutral venue and getting an unnecessary home advantage, but then the neutral avenue that these parties select is an avenue that most of the times has least to do with Sharia legal or Sharia arbitration system. Let's say UK, or let's say US. You see what I mean? So this is where this whole, and by the way, all of this at the back end, who create these contracts, who make these contracts, who write these contracts, who add the clauses, and who force or who induces parties to select for a neutral venue, are those minds, are those legal experts who have themselves nothing to do with Islamic financial transactions. They are barristers or legal experts in the conventional system, and now they happen to deal, because they have a certain brand of legal success, people go towards them, and now they all of a sudden they have to deal with an Islamic financial transaction which they have not seen before. So they are of course going to apply their conventional legal mind, create a conventional legal mindseted similar contract, because so many things are similar in conventional and Islamic finance, particularly when the outcomes are related. So they use the whole mental makeup. They create a legal contract that is ordained to serve an Islamic financial transaction, and in it is selected a neutral venue for any potential legal disputes. This is the cause. You see, I'm talking about the causes. This is where the crux of the cause. This is where you start on the wrong footing. But you have no option, because you do not have a system or a legal mindset or a legal, human capital that is so well attuned to Islamic financial transactions that you don't even need to go and talk about a conventional way of dealing legal disputes in Islamic financial transactions. Look at, for example, the situation in GCC. Predominantly, GCC either follows the New York Convention or the common law or the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, the UNICTRAL model law, or the ICC rules. These are those four commonly adopted back-end legal arbitration models or system that even the GCC legal or arbitration system uses. Either it refers, bases, or some way or the other model itself directly or indirectly on these four international arbitration models, to use them also when it comes to Islamic financial transaction and legal disputes. You see what I mean over here? I've given you what is happening in Dubai, what is happening in Qatar. For example, look at this, what is happening in Bahrain, what is happening even in Kuwait, for example. So all in all, transactions are often governed by either a New York or an English or an ICC or something that has to do with common law and stuff like that. And now you're going to govern an Islamic financial transaction so that it can avoid legal dispute. You see where the mismatch, you see where the cause is. And bear in mind, all of this has been built, created, written, governed, administered, implemented, and then eventually fought in the court of law by lawyers who have no link whatsoever with either the Islamic fiqh of legal jurisprudence, or I'm talking about predominant, or the judgmental criteria. And there are so many cases where judges themselves felt helpless. And why do you think? And Malaysia has made a fantastic move. And this is how the system is growing in a very healthy way, where last year, pre-COVID, Malaysia announced that any legal affair or any legal case or arbitration or legal disputes that comes to the Malaysian court for settlement will be referred directly to we call it in Oman, the higher Sharia authority in the central bank, or they call it the Sharia board, the central bank Sharia board, because they are the right experts for Islamic finance. I'm not talking about Sharia 101, please. I'm talking about Islamic finance. You see, I'm not talking about social disputes. I'm not talking about marriage disputes. I'm not talking about ibadah disputes and all this, and I'm talking about finance. You need a Sharia, legal Sharia, Islamic financial Sharia legal framework dedicated for Islamic finance, not a overall Sharia legal framework. And also from out of that, you're also trying to apply to Islamic finance. No, this is financial world is different. You have to have a dedicated different framework under Sharia for just Islamic finance. So what Malaysians did, and kudos to them, that now all the legal disputes that may arise in Islamic financial transactions between the parties will be directly referred to the Sharia board, the main Sharia board that is sitting in the central bank and administering the Sharia aspects or the Sharia, cover for the whole Islamic financial. They're the right people, much better people than a normal judge or a normal lawyer or barrister or a wakil at a court. Much better them handle than these folks handle. You see what I mean? So this is one step forward in the right direction in trying to sort of fill this massive vacuum. And believe you me, as I mentioned, this is not a vacuum that is in 101 dynamics. Now you're going to be faced with dynamics that are fintech, cybersecurity, climate change, pandemic, UN SDGs driven. Boy, you have a lot on your hand coming up, and you have to be A game at your Ashraf. You have to show your A game at your Ashraf. So, and this is why, journalist judges in these jurisdictions are not familiar with jurisdictions that are neutral venues and are governed by all of these ICC common laws and stuff like that, as I mentioned. Journalist judges in these jurisdictions are not familiar with the Sharia and lack of institutional competence to opine on Sharia principle, and they are allowed to give a judgment on a classic Islamic financial transaction, be it a murabaha transaction. Certain judges may be even unwilling to recognize Sharia law at all, and this happened, which would frustrate the purpose of the contract. This is the effect. This is not the challenge. Challenge is what I just told you. The cause is the challenge. Causes is what I just told you. Back end and front end causes. These are the effects. The famous case of Shamil Bank of Bahrain versus Baximico Pharmaceuticals. This is an effect. This had to happen. The contract had a choice. Look at the contract. So funny. The contract had a choice of law clause that stated, subject to the principles of glorious Sharia, this agreement shall be governed and construed in accordance with the law of England. My God, look at this dichotomy over here. So subject to the principles of glorious Sharia, the contract is governed by law of England. Would you ever see such a clause been added by a wakil or a legal expert that is mainly and essentially driven on Islamic finance understanding? That is a system that is mainly essentially driven and is aligned to Islamic finance itself. Would that system accept such a clause where you say, we follow Sharia, but the contract is governed by law of England? This itself is a mimicry, or is a mockery, or it mimics, not mimics, but it's not right. It sort of ridicules what is happening in right on your face when it comes to Islamic arbitration or legal systems. And of course, the outcome is self-evident. It's an autopilot. And on top of that, even if I want to settle my cases in my home jurisdiction, the time it takes, the money it takes. For example, it takes almost twice as long for the proceedings to reach a natija or a result in in Middle East as compared to US. As I mentioned, in legal affairs, time is so important. The long the legal affairs take, the more the money you spend. It becomes it's a costly procedure. Costly not only fulus-wise, but reputation-wise as well. So I have an incentive to refer to a US court, be it has anything to do with Sharia or not, because it saves my time, it perhaps saves my reputation, as compared to if I do the same in Middle East, that is a little more Sharia driven, or is more Sharia driven as compared to a UK or a US court. So it's such a comedy of errors going on, such a comedy of errors going on. And this is what the causes are. you do not have the right experts. You do not hence have the right system. You do not hence have the right legal frameworks. You do not hence have the right. This is why, when people talk about this rosy dream of Sharia harmonization and standardization, folks, who is going to do this harmonization and standardization? The experts. If the experts have, and the legal experts you're talking about, if the legal experts have not enshrined themselves from end to end on the fitrah of Islamic finance and Islamic economic system, what harmonization or standardization you're talking about? You cannot even agree on the nomenclature of Islamic finance. Do you know, and I'm sure you do, that there is also a dispute between what should we call it? Should we keep on calling it Islamic finance? Should we start calling it socially responsible finance? Should we start calling it participation finance? Should we start calling it ethical finance? And so on and so forth. You see what I mean? So you cannot have common ground on the basic nomenclature of Islamic banking and finance. You're talking about Sharia harmonization and standardization. And believe you me, by the way, overall, you're talking about 90% of different schools of thought. And I believe these schools, the mazahib that we have, the 5 common mazahibs, predominant, this is healthy to the system. And believe you me, almost 90 to 95%, overall, if you look at it, to me at least, we are already harmonized and standardized. Wherever shoya differences are is on the ibadah that is directly between man and Allah, humans and Allah relationship. Other humans should have nothing to do with that. You see what I mean? If I pray with my hands closed or with my hands straight down, this is between me and Allah, not between me and my other, human being. So all those shoya minor differences, or what you say, form differences, form-wise differences that this mazahib has, which I believe is very healthy to have this mazahib, and then have a much more robust framework of Sharia. 90 to 95% are in full harmony and standardization overall, and shoya differences are just on form-wise differences that has, if you look at it, more to do with a one-on-one ibadah, direct ibadah between man and Allah, rather than social or muamalat driven with man to man. So you don't even have a right system and a right mindset, and yet you talk about Sharia harmonization and standard. This is where I think it's not Sharia. Now the problem is, what happens is, now there is a sense prevailing now that why Sharia harmonization and standardization is such a big challenge, and we may not perhaps achieve it. One reason why this sense is prevailing, because people have started thinking that rules of Sharia are so hard to understand, implement, and then be applied in a common parlance. This is what makes Sharia harmonization and standardization difficult. So it means it is the Sharia that is, making it, or the understanding of it, that is making it harmonization and standardization so difficult. We are not talking about that. It's the mindset. People are not well accustomed to it, particularly when it comes to arbitration and legal. People are not fully aware of it. It is the legal mindset that is the cause, not the Sharia rule itself. Your mind is weak or not well trained to grasp that Sharia rule and grasp it in a 360-degree manner, so you can mold it within the domains of Sharia and then use it to cater a potential financial dispute or a contingency coming up in this modern world, which is marred by 4 or 5 new dynamics. It's not Sharia or implementing Sharia that is difficult, to creating the difficulty for this dream of harmonization and standardization in Sharia, particularly when it comes to Islamic finance. It is the people who are involved that are meant to achieve this. People are not aware of this inside-out dynamics of Sharia. Hence, harmonizing or standardizing the rules, regulation of Sharia to have a full-on, standardized Islam, yet that is, seems far-fetched to come to reality. So it's not Sharia. It is the people involved And I'm just talking about the legal and arbitration aspect. And remember, I mean, there is a new phenomena in economics called the new institutional frameworks, not relatively new, that says that any system, any economic system, be it a country, where the institutions of the country are well aligned, robust, anti-fragile, and are well in line and in consonance with the, let's say in this case, financial system of that country, be it Islamic or conventional system, that financial system or that country is bound to achieve success. And when I say institution, it means rules, the components of the ecosystem that I'm talking about. Institutional economics, and when they use the word it does not mean an institution means building. No, it means rules of the game, or the components of the ecosystem, the support components of the ecosystem. If your human capital is the right one, if your tax system is right one, legal system is right one, governance system is right one, political system is right, is there is less corruption, is there more trust in the system? Trust is an institution. Property rights safeguarding, you know, I mean, high degree of transparency, contract enforcement, so on. All of these are institutions. If all of these institutions are working well and are aligned to the financial system in this case, that financial system will definitely prosper, because each component of the ecosystem, each institution of that ecosystem is supporting the way you want the financial system to work in the right trajectory. And this is why they say that an economy is only bound to prosper, even though it may have a lot of wealth and a lot of natural resources, if the institutional structure, if the components of the ecosystem, in this case, we are talking about the legal system or arbitration system, is weak or is not in match with that system, well, rest of the story, you know what's going to happen. So you're going to move at a weak or a chaotic system rather than an orderly system. And this one research picked this concept up, and a latest version has come up as well. This is the estimates I'm talking about, 2013-14 version of that research. So what they did was they collected all of those institutions or components of that ecosystem that are also Islamic in nature. All of them, these, you can see that. And what it did was it tested 207 countries on all of these components and all of these ecosystem components and institutions in that system. You can see that. And Natij were the first 21 countries were following all of these Islamic rules or Islamic institutions or components much better were these: Ireland, Denmark, Luxembourg, The first country to appear as a Muslim country was Malaysia, number 33. The first Muslim country to enter the list following their Islamic rules and institutions well was Malaysia. That was number 30. So the first 32 countries were all non-Islamic countries. And you can see that, you know, I mean, according to that paper and that data that judged all of these countries on these beautiful institutions, if you don't have the right institutions, be it the legal institutions, you cannot expect the right trajectory. And this is the Natij, and you can see Bahrain 61 over here. You can see Kuwait 42, Malaysia 33. Look at all of these. These are all Muslim countries. Pakistan 145. This is 2013-14 data. Latest version is already out. You can Google this research again. You can have Saudi Arabia, my God, for 91. Oman, where I'm from, 82. That's, you know, means UAE 64. So you can see that there is this. You can see what are the causes is what I'm saying, and don't be surprised about the effects, and be basir enough to distinguish the effect from a cause and cause from an effect. This is very, very important. This is what I'm trying to do. So if you don't have an institutional framework that protects your property rights, contract informants, market conduct is not in line, production and exchange, distribution, redistribution, and on top of it, climate change management now, pandemic management now, cybersecurity management now, fintech dynamics now, UN SDGs contingencies now, add to this list. If they are not well aligned and well understood and crafted on Islamic finance dynamics end to end, and driven by those people, the results would be you will have an arbitration system that is as work in progress perpetually as anything can be. My way forward, guys, lack of system support. Yes, in a system where pandemic and cybersecurity and climate change risk shall be mainstream now, if you don't have a legal human capital, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying legal human capital in form of believers and visionaries, then only knows conventional, with a brand of conventional legal affairs success, now trying to deal in legal terms or arbitration terms, even from a judge perspective, an Islamic financial transaction and trying to manage an Islamic financial driven dispute, you would see it, creating a mess of a situation and making a mockery and ridiculing the system. And then, people start pointing fingers at Islamic finance and Sharia, so they started thinking, started taking effects as serious stuff rather than looking at the cause of those effects. So don't blame Islamic finance or Sharia if you're struggling to deal your legal disputes, or if you're struggling to reach harmonization or standardization. This is the effect. Blame the cause. Cause is you don't have believers or visionaries in the system, legal system or arbitration system, that are well attuned, trained, and accustomed to understanding of Islamic finance from end to end. And if a knower-based or knower-dominated system would be, present, driven, and run by knowers, be it in whatever capacity, and this is not only relevant to Islamic finance, it is all relevant also to any discipline, be it physics or chemistry as well, or be it medicine too. Man, oh man, it'll be madness if you keep on repeating and using the same formula and expect a different result. It'll be madness is what Einstein has also termed it. So I believe it is about time where the younger people, the younger youth, my generation and generation to come, have to be proactively made aware of this vacuum, and then they have to be attuned and trained, underpinned to fill that vacuum by making their heart, mind, and spiritual capacity in a 360-degree manner to create new age scholars, legal experts who are not only aware of the vacuum, but have the capacity and capability to live their ashrafness. They are ashraf, we are all are, to live their ashrafness, to fill that vacuum in the way we desire as a believer and as a visionary. And with that, folks, I thank you very much. It was an important topic. I had to, and as I mentioned, I could have given a talk on careers in Islamic finance, but this is the career, man. Oh man, this is a massive career. I myself is interested in. If Allah gives me time or gives my family or children this capacity, definitely, why not? Maybe I can have one of my boys to, focus on this area and try and fill this vacuum. Fulus and reputation, and then contribution that can, make us successful in dunya and akhirah is all there to capture. So thank you very much, guys. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mughees, for your wonderful explanation. And the topic was covered very excellently. And alhamdulillah, we learned many.
You got your career answers, Mohammed?
Yes, I think that's much more better. Rather to have a lecture on the career itself only. So
I just gave you a direct 4 or 5, areas where young people can make careers. Even the, old lawyers can think about these things. Such a vacuum. There are no experts in climate change, fintech, and falan that I've just mentioned to deal in Islamic finance, even in conventional. So it's a massive career opportunities, multifaceted.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's see if there are some questions maybe from participants. I think you can either write your question in question and answer section, or you may raise your hand and we switch on microphone for you. Then you can speak and we can hear your question or comment. So I think there are 2 questions written. by Futuwa Al-Sane, I think. How can we ensure harmonization in mostly civil law-based legal systems that are mutually exclusive to Islamic finance? You can see
Is this a question or a comment?
I think there's the question. You can see also in the question and answer section, she has two questions.
So how can we ensure harmonization in mostly civil law-based legal system that are mutually exclusive? We can't. The answer is we can't. We can't. As I just mentioned, if you use the same formula and expect a different result, this is madness at the highest level. So we just can't. Thank you. Al-Sani. Futu Al-Sani. Sorry if I mispronounce. Yeah, what else?
There is the second question from Mr. Rami Chehab. I think she is sharing something.
On how you are re-engineering the system in Oman, especially in fintech. Well, Rami, you've asked me about re-engineering. Oman, it's a beautiful, beautiful country, amazing people. I don't know if you have visited Oman or not. It's a place to be, such a subtle society and subtle country. Really raw and fresh in its natural beauty as well. But the thing is that, with all this beauty comes a relative, a system that is relatively, unaccustomed as we speak now to the advancements in fintech. And there is now an interest in making sure that technology is adopted more in aspects of life, even public dealing affairs and government and non-government affairs. There is a move now, at least an awareness from the top to bottom approach, where the government is now focused on two things: youth and technology reliance, as a couple of way forward among the list of things that they have adopted vis-a-vis Vision 2040 under His Majesty Sultan Haytham. So there is an air of youngness, a young beauty to all of these plans. So in Oman, we are at very, very preliminary stage. There is awareness being built on. There's still a little bit of conservatism in the approach. It's a wait and see approach, wait and see what other regions are also doing approach. And so as of now, I do not have any practical example. I do not have any practical example from any country that is already ready with its legal framework that also caters to fintech dynamics. As I mentioned, these are so new items to the world and stuck suddenly. The world has been stuck by them suddenly. That this is not being talked about. This is why I'm saying it's such an opportunity to make an advanced career in this, because you're going to, by the time you finish your program, you're going to be in high demand. So there is none. And again, the basic formula: conventional experts will start reading about fintech, and then they will use their conventional mind and start legally dealing in fintech or climate change or pandemic and stuff. I don't mind that, but this is not the right way. You need a classic fintech legal experts to deal a fintech transaction. I don't need a conventional legal expert to also deal into fintech transaction. I don't need a conventional legal expert, even a judge, to also deal into climate change aspect in that legal transaction. It is zulm to him as well, and it is zulm to the end recipients too, because there is a massive mismatch at both ends. So get the horses for courses is the mantra, is the natural way forward. Rami.
Thank you very much. Let's listen to Dr. Ibrahim Nasur. I switch on microphone for Dr. Ibrahim. So please, Dr. Ibrahim, if you have any question. Yeah.
Thank you, Shariah. Good evening, everybody. My question directly to the Dr. Mughees. About when I see your CV, I notified that you are an expert in fintech. So everybody and every country now is starting immediately in this diamond. And I want to know uh, what is the start point to be a specialist in fintech. So every time I ask and I question everybody, and he doesn't give me the suitable answer for that, because he said it is a new demand and it is a new specialist. We don't know where's the world is going. So you know that the financial and Islamic banking and in general need to know a little bit about fintech. So we need programs. Is there any programs? Is there we can start it to be a specialist like you? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Dr. Ibrahim. And such an important question, and I appreciate you on this question. First of all, I will try and answer it in 2 or 3 ways to address mostly what you have said. Number one, Ibrahim, you would agree with me that to do anything, particularly when it's new to you, there is only one natural process: start from the scratch. And don't think that overnight you will become a specialist in that. You see what I mean? This is law of nature. This is Qanun this is the Qanun of nature. Start from the scratch. Be a baby. Be a baby. There is no 2 ways about that. If you want to know about any new discipline, be it in this case financial technology discipline, be a baby into it. I believe, if I'm not wrong, Imam Ali, the 4th Khalifa of Islam, I think it is one of his words of wisdom. He's known for his wisdom. He said that if you go into a battle, but in your mind, you think that you already know how to win it, 50% of the battle is already lost by you before you go into the battle. But if you go into a battle or anything, even though you may know how to win, but your mind says, I'm as new in this battle as a new baby, even though you have fought battles 100 times and you've won 100 battles. But even the 101st battle, the battle number 101, if you go with a mindset that is a baby-like mindset, without thinking, oh, I'm such an expert, and this even 101 battle is going to be the same, approach for me. This is where the problem will start. So if you go into a battle with a baby-like mentality, consider 50% of the battle won. If you go into the same battle with the mentality, oh, I already know about it, and I need to become an expert overnight, quick expertise, instant expertise, then the opposite. Consider the battle of 50% you have lost already before going to the battle. So Ibrahim, only one way. This is fitra. I'm talking about nature. You want to understand a system, go to the scratch, spend time with it. Let the nature or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide how much hikmah he will release to you, how much hikmah or capacity or ashrafness he will help you utilize, and how quickly you will grasp this new discipline or new ideas. Who knows, given your niyyah, where you started from scratch, where others people took 2 years to understand the system, you may take only 6 months. Who knows? Allah will decide it for you, depending on your niyyah and depending on your quwwah and your effort. Amount of your understanding and the timing of your understanding, let the nature decide it. This is number one. Number two, are there any trainings and stuff available? When I say whatever I said to you, I say this because I applied all of this to myself first. When fintech came into picture and I started getting related to fintech, I spent time on fintech. I invested fulus on fintech, and I enrolled in MIT for USA, and I graduated an intensive program on fintech back in 2016, 2017, because I knew if I do not follow a natural fitri approach, I cannot project and make others understand the necessity and the dynamics of it. So I graduated. I spent time on that. I spent money, effort, school, nights, and that too on MIT. So I qualified myself, and by then that qualification, I was, I allowed myself to now seriously start this journey. This was my approach, and this is always my approach. When I call myself as somebody who understands or expertise in Islamic finance, I did the same in Islamic finance, even in climate change and stuff like that. One way that you can do this, there are so many courses now coming on fintech. The entity that I operate from Canada, FGI is mentioned, the Fintel Global in Canada. They have number of fantastic courses for industry and non-industry people, even students, on fintech, climate change, and other new age topics. There is another July 12th. There is a series that IOFI, IDB IRTI, Bank Nizwa Oman, FGI Canada, IFM, they are coming up with a series of 90-minute sessions which will give you certificate as well. One of those sessions is on fintech too. Try and attend those things, talk to expert people while you're doing your own businesses and stuff as well. And slowly but surely, Brother Ibrahim, you will definitely be a position, who knows, in the next 3 months, that you will have a much better idea. Sorry for a long answer, but that was important.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mughees, and also Dr. Ibrahim, for a nice question. I think Mr. Usaf Al-Aqil, if he is around, I switch on microphone for Mr. Usaf Al-Aqil. If yes, please. Hello. Mr. Usaf Al-Aqil is here with us, or Ustad Mansoor. Ustad Mansoor. I think they actually raised hand maybe at the beginning of the lecture. So
yeah.
Either they got.
It's so boring that either they have slept or they just walked out. So boring.
Yeah. So I think Mr. Rami, I think he already asked the question by written. I'm not sure whether he has any other question to raise. Or yeah, Mr. Rami, please. I switch on microphone for you already.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, sure.
So hello, Mughees. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I'm myself, I'm a lecturer here in the UK at Aston University. So basically, I wanted to attend to understand more about the challenges that you are facing there on Oman, especially that you have studied in Western kind of countries, and you know how advanced they are in financial technology. One of the things that you mentioned and pointed out, and I think this is one of the challenges in the West regarding corporate governance in Islamic principles, especially when you are dealing here with Islamic bankings in the West. There is a difference between front end and back end, and this kind of dichotomy that you mentioned. Are you there with me, Mughees?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, so basically, one of the things that I realized is that we have lots of challenges, and it seems that our current finance understanding of so many things that you just mentioned about the causes, and that we are really we really need a lot of advancement, and therefore we really need a lot of investment in our youngsters. Sure. It seems that in your presentation you are somehow trying to educate in terms of the importance of morals and the importance of this kind of gray area. But I feel that one of the things that I found that I would really want, hoping that you can give us more insight into it, is is how kind of, particular example, maybe a very simple transaction that you can mention it in details, where you see that, okay, we don't have the infrastructure in Oman. Do we have like, like for example, in the UK, we have like a bank and we have a corporate Sharia governance who should have, lack of, that should have a very transparent system, who are, they are having no conflict of interest. Do we have these kind of things in Arab countries? And how much, like you were mentioning those non-Islamic, when you say non-Islamic, I mean, of majority of the people are not Islamic in these kind of countries. You mentioned that they apply the Islamic principle much better than Islamic countries, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned those kind of indexes that you just pointed out. And it seems that we don't have the infrastructure in order to apply Islamic finance in those countries because of these indexes. And it seems that you are just saying that we need to educate rather than saying what are the exact points that we need to do in order to make. First of all, is there any good investment in the youngsters that they need to apply those infrastructure for them to apply financial technology in Oman and other GCSE? Because let's be honest, these are the most rich countries in the Islamic world. If they are not going to be investing those kind of infrastructure in the youngster, I think it's very hard for Islamic countries to do these kind of investment. So what are the challenges in that regards, based on your knowledge with your expertise in Oman and the other countries in the Islamic world? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rami. And again, you have hit upon an extremely important idea about the challenges in the overall. When I answer this question, of course, I limit myself only to the legal and arbitration and the Sharia governance affairs, but this is applicable to even the other items that relate to Islamic finance as well. As I mentioned, first of all, let's talk about Oman. Oman is a very young country in embracing Islamic finance. So what, hardly been 7-8 years. So one of the problems that I believe, whichever country adopted Islamic finance, sorry, it may be a little long answer, but it's important, Rami. One of the common problem for all the countries, be it Islamic or non-Islamic countries, that has anything to do with Islamic finance, whenever they have adopted either the Islamic system or an Islamic transaction, they adopted it independent of a system or an overall ecosystem that is also attuned for Islamic finance. You see what I mean? It's a very important point, understand this. So I am adopting a new system, but I'm going to adopt it in an ecosystem that I have, which is not made for this system. You see, this is point number one. And I still adopt that system. Fair enough. Okay, you did that, although wrong footing, but still did that. It's all right. It's whenever you're trying to do something good, do it. Number two, when you adopted it, while you already adopted it in a wrong ecosystem, which never suit or still does not suit it totally, when you adopted it in an experimental way. How do I say experimental way? You started using this system in a Windows version, Islamic finance window. I've never heard of conventional banking window. I don't know, Rami, if you've heard about a conventional bank window or what. I always heard about a bank having an Islamic financial window. So you adopted a system in a unfriendly, volatile, aggressively unmatched ecosystem for that new system. Does not match it. And number two, you adopted it as an experimental approach, where let's see, let me allow the banks to operate Windows and let's see how it works, how the system or the market reacts to it. So this mindset, when you adopt and implement any system, be it Islamic finance, even medicine, like for example, this COVID-19 vaccines, this is some countries initially, or still are having, or even individuals having such a mindset in a different way, but at base, it's the same, the tentativeness. You would have, and remember, you would have effects that you and I are facing now. Our problem is to be basir enough to distinguish effects from causes. Cause are the two things that I've just mentioned you, the system adoption and the way it was adopted. These causes has given rise to so many effects. To address those effects, we have to go back to the cause and break down those causes into its components. When you break it down, those causes into their components, then you will see, one component is human capital I need to fix. One component is legal framework I need to fix. One component is all those institutional rules that I've just mentioned that was by research that was applied to Islamic and non-Islamic countries. I must make sure my institutions are not only robust and mazboot, but also in direct matching to that system. When somebody has risen a voice from a government sector that, okay, I am going to allow Islamic finance and ecosystem that better matches it. You know what happens? Conventional banks start raising voices. Oh my God, then you're not giving conventional banks a level playing field. What? You see what I mean? So it's a lot of mess. You have political pressures, you have lobbyism. I'm just being very honest. You have mental, this, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say too much, but there's so many things that are missing from the puzzle. And as a result, if you want to do something about it, you have to go step by step. If you want to ask me what is a concrete or a practical example, let's say in Oman is too young for an example. It is still, under the phase of developing its other aspects. Legal is 6th or 7th down the road. And yet we have hardly seen any legal affairs happening vis-a-vis Islamic finance in Oman. Talk about a market that is more mature. I give you 2 examples, Malaysia and Pakistan. Now, Malaysia has learned by burning its fingers. Initially, and I'm just talking about the legal affairs. Initially, in a system that again has 2 basic causes, ecosystem is not friendly to or not made for Islamic system, and then the niyyah of adopting Islamic finance. Malaysia also had windows, if you remember. Initially, when there was any legal dispute arising from Islamic banking or Islamic finance, it used to go to normal courts, and it created a mess. People started abusing the system because Islamic financial system was not ready, contractual system was not well crafted enough. There were so many loopholes, and customers started abusing those loopholes. You see that because they had a certain cause, and you know what the causes are: human capital, fala, fala, fala. Because those causes was creating an effect where there were loopholes in the contracts, people started abusing the system. And I know when I was moving from Malaysia and coming to Oman, I know that I personally studied 40 Islamic banking legal litigations where Islamic banks either had or were going to face the music. You see, or there was an out-of-court settlement going on. Because the legal system is not made for this, mentally, spiritually, as well as model-wise and implementation too. Malaysia learned apparently by burning its fingers and having a bit of reputation dent as well, because Islamic banking is a serious business. Remember, it's a religious tag to it. Anything that happens, bad happens to Islamic finance, people don't disequate Islam and banking. They would say Islamic finances, but so the same applies. If you are unable to achieve Sharia harmonization and standardization, it is not because Sharia is difficult. It is because your mental capacity is weak. You're not ashraf enough to achieve harmonization and standardization. So Malaysians, I'm giving you practical examples now. Now, any litigation, any legal dispute that may arise from Islamic finance will have to be referred to the Sharia board, the central Sharia board that is sitting in the central bank, who are better equipped to understand Islamic financial nitty-gritty and intricacies than a judge who has dealt with conventional litigations, and all of a sudden he has to do an Islamic financial litigation. Judges, Malaysian judges I know, Patah himself was shocked. How can you have a system that is Sharia as well as governed by common law? That was a conundrum to him as well, like it is a conundrum to us too. So it's a massive comedy of errors, but a system. It's a practical example is Malaysia is improving its litigation system and making it more, at least now the right experts, relative right experts are going to deal with it, and slowly other aspects will cover to Pakistan. Pakistan has 2 court systems right now. One is the common law system, Supreme Court, High Court, and whatever. The other is a Sharia court. Sharia court. Anything that has to do with Sharia goes directly to the Sharia court. Mufti Taqi Usmani, the very famous scholar of the Islamic financial arena, who sort of, is the top 2 or 3, 5 people that are there in the Islamic financial sector, was the Chief Justice of that Sharia court. You understand that back in the 90s era till he retired. He was the one who started this, he was among the proponents or the main potent roles who started this non-riba movement and, sort of facilitated that. Pakistan has a model where you have a Sharia, dedicated Sharia legal affair framework or courts available to go and, fight your legal litigation or Sharia-based issues. But problem is, again, the cause comes in. The system is not aware of this. The system is still, in Pakistan, there is a case or a decision being reviewed and pending in the conventional Supreme Court of Pakistan, which can either justify or non-justify the allowance of riba. There is a litigation in review pending in Supreme Court of Pakistan, not Sharia court, Supreme Court. What does it have to do with Supreme Court, for example, if you talk in the basic sense? It must go to Sharia court. But who took it? So Rami, I wish, we have more. And on top of it, Rami, you're now going to deal with cybersecurity contingencies, climate change contingencies, pandemic, UNSD. Everything has a legal side to it. Everything has a legal side to it. You see, because it's commercial, it's muamalat. Everything must have a legal side to it. And legal side is the top 3 components of any transaction. So there are developments happening to practicalize that, but much better than what it was 10 years ago. But speed has to be increased is what I'm saying. And only the younger generation folks, perhaps like you, or the folks who are looking forward for a career, may be the right choice to catalyze all this development, Rami.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mughees, mashallah, for a wonderful explanation and the answer to the question of our Mr. Rami from UK. Thank you very much for your question as well. So Mr. Omar, I think, is going to ask something. I switch on microphone for Mr. Omar. Please, Mr. Omar. Hello, Mr. Omar is with us. Omar Sidibe.
Telling you, this is too boring. People have dozed off.
Mr. Omar, are you with us? Omar Sidibe. I think that's all. Thank you very much. We Nadal Iqtisad al-Islami with Jamiat al-Kuwait would like to thank all participants, especially students and lecturers from around the world who joined the session today. We thank you very much for your participation, and we believe that you will stay tuned with Nadal Iqtisad al-Islami and our programs, lectures, trainings, inshallah, in future as well. So on behalf of Nadal Iqtisad al-Islami, we would like to thank Mr. Mughees Shaukat for your time and effort. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your effort and time with us and your service for the Ummah and to Islamic finance, Islamics section as well. So, and I think if you have any closing remarks, please welcome Mr. Mughees.
Yeah, Mohammed, thank you very much. Again, it was a pleasure to join you in this platform. I mean, it's a beautiful platform that you guys have, and aim is, to make sure that we are creating the right awareness in the right way. Even in this topic, you can go to even high end. You can go into real technical stuff. I can even show you a contract. Look at this clause. Look at this flaw. Look at this flaw. But I know if the initial or the basic or the ground end is not being covered, why am I going to take people to a 6th or 5th level of their understanding when the first 5 levels, particularly the ground level, is still to be covered. So my try always is, whenever I'm doing in any delivering any topic, it depends on the nature of topic as well. And this is a topic which is so under discussed and so so under addressed, this, and so important, and yet so under addressed. This is why I really felt that there is a vacuum of at least let the people know that what's going on, and get the groundwork, the ground floor being made ready for it to be a launching pad for the other levels of this topic to be understood. You don't know the basic inside outs, you're on a shallow territory, and be it you go into, legal this, legal that, legal whatever, you will collapse. This is exactly what happens in Islamic finance overall, where people are hardly aware of. They still ask questions, what is the difference between conventional and Islamic finance? Go to a common man, they're still as confused as they were 40 odd years ago. You are 40 years after, you're still unable to satisfy him and have a one-liner, crisp, common, universal answer that differentiate the two systems for a common man. You are still, to get that level, what can you talk about? Which is more profitable bank, which is sukuk, which is this, which is that? Those are 12th or 11th level. Get the fitra fixed first. Like in this, I try to always do, and then move on. That's the natural way. And I thank you very much for you guys to giving me an opportunity again. And I would repeat myself, this is a massive career opportunity and option. There is a breadth of legal experts, particularly in Islamic finance, who has a lot to offer, particularly in the new generation. Look at this topic, where this is what my main objective was, to provoke you guys, to make you aware about this area, and hence the vacuum from multifaceted way, so that you become stimulated to try and address this area, or this huge component of the overall ecosystem, the institutions of legal arbitration and Sharia, and then assist with your fitra makeup on these areas to eventually reach Sharia harmonization and fix this or address this Sharia governance conundrum that I have talked about. Youth has a huge role to play, and we have to stimulate proactively and preemptively the youth right now, is what I'm saying. So it's a massive career opportunity.
بارك الله فيك جزاك الله خيرا نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى يبارك سعيك وينفع بك الإسلام والمسلمين. And before you end the session, I would like to thank Dr. Ala Ustaz Ala Al-Ubaid, who is the Director General of Nadl Iqtisad Islami, and all the members in the management. Thank you very much for your work, hard work and effort. With that, we conclude the session here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa alaikum assalam. And maybe Kuwait can, take the lead and go forward in creating such experts from the younger generation who can address these areas, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen, Ya Rab. Thank you very much. See you in another session very soon, inshallah.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Allah, Allah, Allah.